January 31st, 1921, Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. A Coast Guard surfman named C.P. Brady was standing watch at his station when a shape emerged from the morning mist. A massive five-masted schooner, all sails set, riding the breakers, hard aground on the Diamond Shoals. Brady watched through his binoculars. No movement on deck, no signal flag, no crew visible anywhere on the ship. He alerted nearby stations. For 4 days the weather was too rough to reach her. For 4 days the ship sat on the shoals, battered by January surf, visible from shore, completely untouchable. When boarding parties finally reached the Carroll A Deering on February 4th, they found something that would puzzle investigators for the next 100 years. The galley stove was cold, but pots of pea soup, spare ribs and coffee had been prepared and left untouched. 3 starving cats wandered the decks. The ship's wheel had been smashed to pieces. The lifeboats were gone. The logbook was gone. Every piece of navigation equipment was gone. And most frightening of all 11 men were gone. The Carroll A Deering was found in perfect sailing condition, sails set, hull intact, food on the stove, with every person who had been aboard simply erased from existence. 5 departments of the United States federal government investigated. The FBI investigated. Herbert Hoover himself, then Secretary of Commerce, personally took interest in the case. Nobody ever found a single answer. The Carroll A Deering was the finest vessel the G.G. Deering Company of Bath, Maine had ever built. A 5-masted commercial schooner, 255 feet long, 1,879 tons, launched in April 1919, one of the last great wooden sailing ships constructed in America. She was already a relic when she was built, an era of steam having long since made vessels like her obsolete, but she was magnificent. Her troubles began before she ever left American waters on her final voyage. In August 1920, she departed Norfolk, Virginia, with a load of coal bound for Rio de Janeiro. Her original captain, William Merritt, fell seriously ill just days out of port and had to be replaced. The company called in Captain Willis Warmel, 66 years old, retired for 6 years, his eyesight failing, to take command. A new first mate, Charles McClellan, was hastily brought aboard in Boston. 2 strangers taking command of a ship they didn't know, with a crew they hadn't chosen, on a voyage that had already gotten off to a troubled start. The Deering delivered her coal to Rio de Janeiro and stopped in Bridgetown, Barbados in late December 1920 for supplies before heading home. What happened in Barbados would become the centerpiece of every theory about what happened next. Captain Warmel confided in an old friend, Captain Hugh Norton, that he was having serious trouble with his first mate. McClellan was habitually drunk ashore. He treated the crew with what Warmel described as totally uncalled for brutality. And because Warmel's eyesight was failing, McClellan was doing most of the actual navigation, which gave him enormous power he deeply resented. McClellan gave his own version to Captain Norton. He said Warmel interfered every time he tried to discipline the crew, leaving him with no real authority. He asked Norton to sign him onto another ship. Norton refused, judging McClellan to be a man of poor character. McClellan's response was to get drunk in Barbados and say the words that multiple witnesses would later repeat to federal investigators. "I will get the captain before we get to Norfolk. I will. He was arrested for drunkenness." Captain Warmel, perhaps out of necessity, perhaps out of misplaced trust, bailed him out of jail. On January 9, 1921, the Carroll A Deering raised anchor and left Barbados. She was never seen with her full crew again. When investigators later examined the navigation charts recovered from the ship, they found something that changed everything. Captain Warmel had been making handwritten notes in the margins of the ship's charts throughout the voyage, recording positions, course corrections, observations. His handwriting was distinctive and well documented. His notes continued normally until January 23, 1921. After that date, a different hand took over. Someone else had been navigating the Carroll A Deering for the final 6 days of her voyage. Whatever happened to Captain Willis Warmel happened on or before January 23rd. 6 days before the ship ran aground. 6 days before anyone found her. 6 days during which 11 men shared a ship in the North Atlantic in January, and whatever occurred between them left no survivor, no witness, and no body. And the investigators who later boarded the ship found one more detail from the captain's quarters that had never been fully explained. 3 different pairs of boot prints on the floor. An extra bed in the room that had recently been slept in by someone who wasn't Wormel. Someone, or multiple people, had been moving in and out of the captain's private quarters. Captain Wormel's cabin looked like a place where something had already happened before the ship ran aground. On January 29th, 2 days before the Deering was found aground, she passed the Cape Lookout lightship off the North Carolina coast. The lightship's master, Captain Thomas Jacobson, reported a strange encounter. A man hailed him through a megaphone from the Deering, saying the ship had lost both anchors in a storm off Cape Fear and asking that the Deering Company be notified. But the man speaking was not Captain Wormel. Jacobson described him as tall, thin, red-haired, with a Scandinavian accent. He did not speak or behave like an officer. More troubling, Jacobson could see crew members milling about on the quarterdeck, an area normally reserved for officers only. The ship looked disorganized. The normal hierarchy of command appeared to have broken down entirely. Jacobson's radio was broken. He couldn't report what he'd seen. As soon as the Deering disappeared over the horizon, a steamer appeared heading south with a working antenna. Jacobson tried frantically to signal it, raising flags, blasting his steam whistle 4 times. The steamer saw him, and then did something extraordinary. It changed course away from the lightship, and its crew stretched canvas over the ship's sides to hide the nameplate. Someone in those waters on January 29th did not want to be identified. The following day, January 30th, the captain of a passing steamer spotted a 5-masted schooner sailing directly toward the Diamond Shoals. He assumed the crew would spot Cape Hatteras lighthouse and change course. They didn't. The Carroll A Deering was not the only ship to vanish in these waters at this time. The SS Hewitt, a steel-hulled sulphur freighter carrying 42 men, had also disappeared in the same stretch of Atlantic in late January 1921. She had last made radio contact off the coast of Florida on January 25th. She was supposed to reach Boston by January 29th. She never arrived. No wreckage, no distress call, no survivors. 42 men gone without explanation. At least 9 other vessels of various nationalities were reported missing in the Western Atlantic during this same period. Most were later accounted for, their disappearances attributed to a series of powerful winter storms. But both the Deering and the Hewitt had been proven to be sailing away from the storm areas at the time they vanished. Herbert Hoover ordered a full investigation. 5 federal departments became involved: Commerce, Treasury, Justice, Navy, and State. The FBI worked the case. Hoover's personal assistant coordinated the inquiry. For over a year, federal investigators pursued every lead. They found very little. Now, the theories. 3 of them carry real weight. Theory 1, mutiny. This is the most widely accepted explanation, and the one supported by the most evidence. McClellan had publicly threatened to get the captain before reaching Norfolk. Multiple witnesses heard him say it. The handwriting in the navigation notes changed on January 23rd, meaning someone took over from Wormel 6 days before the ship was found. A non-officer was speaking through the megaphone at Cape Lookout. Crew members were on the quarterdeck where they weren't supposed to be. Under this theory, McClellan and the crew mutinied sometime around January 23rd. Wormel was killed or incapacitated. The mutineers navigated the ship north, then deliberately drove it onto the Diamond Shoals to destroy evidence, smashing the steering gear to ensure it stayed grounded. They fled in the lifeboats and were lost in the violent January seas off Cape Hatteras, where the collision of the Gulf Stream and the Labrador Current produces some of the most treacherous water on the Atlantic coast. It explains the handwriting change. It explains the non-officer at the megaphone. It explains the smashed steering equipment. It explains the food on the stove, men who were fleeing in a hurry. And it explains why no one ever came home. What it doesn't explain is why no bodies washed ashore. The Cape Hatteras Coast Guard station was only 9 miles away. If the lifeboats capsized that close to shore in January, something should have been found. Nothing was. Theory 2. The mystery steamer. The steamer that covered its nameplate and fled from Jacobson's lightship on January 29th has never been identified. Nobody ever came forward to explain it. Nobody ever admitted to being on it. 1921 was the first year of American prohibition. The waters off North Carolina's Outer Banks were active rum-running territory. Bootleggers operating offshore were known to be ruthless, and a large, empty five-masted schooner like the Deering would have been an extremely attractive vessel to hijack for smuggling purposes. Under this theory, the mystery steamer intercepted the Deering after she passed Cape Lookout. The crew was taken off, or killed and thrown overboard. The Deering was then set loose or accidentally grounded on the shoals. The missing cargo is consistent with this. Pirates don't take empty ships, but rum runners filling a hold would. It explains the mystery steamer's behaviour. It explains the covered nameplate. What it doesn't fully explain is why the ship was grounded rather than taken. Theory 3. The Hewitt Connection. 2 ships. Same stretch of ocean, same time frame. Both completely gone. Some investigators have never been able to dismiss the possibility that the disappearances of the Deering and the Hewitt are connected. A collision between the 2 vessels was proposed as early as March 1921 and never fully dismissed. Under this theory, the Deering and the Hewitt collided in heavy seas. The steel-hulled Hewitt sank quickly. The wooden Deering survived the collision, but with her steering destroyed and her crew either killed, swept overboard, or forced to abandon ship in lifeboats that were subsequently lost. The Deering then drifted north and ran aground on the Diamond Shoals. No physical evidence of a collision was found on the Deering's hull, but the absence of any trace of the Hewitt, 42 men, a steel ship, no wreckage whatsoever, has never been satisfactorily explained by any other theory either. Captain Willis Warmel's daughter Lula spent the rest of her life trying to find out what happened to her father. She was the driving force behind the federal investigation, personally approaching senators, writing letters, demanding answers. She was certain that if the crew had simply abandoned ship and taken the lifeboats toward shore, the Coast Guard station 9 miles away would have found something. A body, a lifeboat, a life preserver. They found nothing, and Lula never got her answer. The Diamond Shoals have claimed over 600 ships in their recorded history. They have earned their name, the graveyard of the Atlantic, many times over. The shoals shift with every storm, rearranging themselves beneath the surface, creating new hazards where none existed before. The Carroll A. Deering ran aground on those shoals on January 31st, 1921. She was destroyed with dynamite in March of that year. Her timbers washed ashore on Hatteras Island and were used by local families to build houses. Her bell and capstan are on display at the graveyard of the Atlantic Museum in Hatteras. And 11 men, a captain with failing eyesight, a first mate who had threatened to kill him, and 9 sailors whose names history barely recorded, are somewhere in the Atlantic. Taken by the same currents that run past the Diamond Shoals and carry everything they claim into the deep. If you want to go deeper on this story, the best account ever written is Ghost Ship of Diamond Shoals by Bland Simpson, the most thorough investigation into the Carroll A. Deering ever published. The link is in the description. Subscribe to Fathomy. There are stories the ocean has kept for a century that still haven't been told properly. We're going to keep telling them. I'll see you in the next one.